Hi, and welcome to Open, the show that opens the Bronx and the rest of the world to you. I'm Kibin Alleyne, and today we'll update you on what's happening in and around our borough. Coming up, the co-founder of Speak Life End Bullying talks about their mission to help end bullying permanently using a musical to help convey this message to students as they enter the new school year. Then the Senior Vice President of Events and Race Director at NYRR shares details on their upcoming events that aim to help NYC build healthier lives and stronger communities through the transformative power of running. After that, an author from the Bronx takes us through his life journey and the struggles he had to overcome. And finally, a New York volunteer coordinator for the Young Center for Immigrant Children's Rights shares more information on how they are seeking volunteers in New York to support unaccompanied migrant children. So stay tuned, all this and much more is headed your way because we're now officially open. Hello everyone, I'm Kibin Alleyne and today is Tuesday, September 3rd. You are now watching Open, a program that brings the Bronx and New York City straight to you. Don't forget to stay connected with us via social media at BronxNet TV. Created by seasoned school administrators, Speak Life End Bullying for Schools is a complete turnkey resource to help breathe life into your student body and open the door for empathy, positive communication, and healing. The national nonprofit offers a unique approach to supporting school-aged children facing bullying through a musical. Let's take a look at this trailer to learn a little bit more about the musical.
Ladies and gentlemen, please enjoy the show.
One by one, tear down these walls. No way that they can stop us. No, they won't stop us.
Welcome to the chaos.
This is our story. Come here as you are. It's okay to be human. This is our story. Come here as you are. It's okay to be human. You don't have to look too far. You're gonna make it. You're gonna make it. Are you listening to me right now? A brighter day.
Dan Burd, the co-founder of Speak Life End Bullying, joins me now. Dan, thank you so much for joining me.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Now, I'm curious to know a little bit more just about the background of, just the beginnings of Speak Life End Bullying. I understand this is something that you and your wife, Rebecca, created. Can you tell me a little bit more?
Yeah, this musical started about 20 years ago, back in 2001, just following Columbine. We were working with youth, and we actually went to a youth networker meeting, and we heard this guy play an audio clip about his story of being bullied. And there's about 50 people in this room, and they're all different ages. And once that audio clip was done, I was moved, and as I looked around the room, you could see everyone in the room was moved, hearing about this guy's story of bullying as a kid. And so both my wife and I kind of looked at each other and we're like, we need to do something, So we went up to the guy that was running the meeting and we're like, we feel like we can't leave. I feel like something needs to happen, we need to do something. And he looked at us and he said, well, you guys are the artists, go do something about it. And so we did. We went back, we met with our staff, and we said, look, we're gonna put together this show based around this stuff that we just heard. And the story follows the life of 4 ordinary students at school. One of those students is Daniel. His name is Daniel. Follows my kind of experience. It was based after me and the things that I had gone through as a kid. And, jump forward 15 years later, we've seen over 500,000 students in 350 schools across the United States. And then COVID hit. We couldn't tour anymore because schools were all closed. So we actually partnered with Justin Simmons, who's a safety for the Atlanta Falcons. And he helped us to put it on film the same way, that Hamilton was put on film. It's a Broadway-style show that was filmed as a Broadway-style show. And now we're able to distribute that nationally to schools and to parents across the country. So it's been a very exciting journey, and we love doing it.
And I want to say congratulations, because I just know, just in general, that it's not easy.
Yeah.
There's a lot that goes into it, and so I can see just by the trailer how much was put into it, and it looks amazing.
Yes.
I'm curious to know, I love musicals. What inspired you to kind of take the musical route with this?
I grew up in musical world. In high school, I played sports and I did musicals. So I loved musicals. My wife is a dancer and a director. I'm an actor and a singer. So when we got married, it was kind of like, this is what we do. We love watching musicals. We love being a part of them. And so it was just the most natural expression for us when we felt like we really wanted to zero in on something and begin helping people. We felt like, what tool do you have in your hand that you're able to use? And for us, that was musicals. We were running a performing arts company at the time for teenage kids, and this just seemed like the most natural extension of ourselves to help in a situation that was both something that had impacted me as a kid and then something that I wanted to help change for my kids.
Now, when we talk about bullying, we usually think it's maybe a one-sided thing.
Right.
But I understand that there may be multiple layers. Can you tell us a little bit more about what you've learned about that?
Yeah, we talk about it in percentages. We say that, statistically speaking, 10% of students in a school would consider themselves to be the bully. 30% of the kids in those schools, 20 to 30% would consider themselves to be the victim. And then 60% of kids in schools really just kind of bystanders. Nobody messes with them. They don't mess with anybody else. They just don't really get involved. And so we actually target that 60%, because we know that if we can mobilize, that's the largest army in a school to help really create an impact in what's going on. So that's kind of how things get broken up, and we do different things for the 10%, different things for the 30%, those kids that are feeling that they're being victimized. And then we target specifically as a nonprofit that 60% of kids that would say they just don't get involved. And we're like, no, it's time to get involved.
Now, we know just because of life, bullying can start as early as kindergarten, first
Yes.
grade. But I understand that the musical may focus on a little bit on older children.
Yes.
Can you explain, why you wanted to focus on that age group?
It just started very organically. Both my wife and I worked, again, with youth, and we were working with teenage kids at the time. So when we wrote the musical, we're like, this is going to be for teenage kids. And then as we began touring in schools and kind of covering the United States, we began to realize 99% of what is out there when it comes to anti-bullying stuff is all for elementary school and younger, preschool. So, I mean, if you just Google anti-bullying, everything that's going to come up is going to have young kid GIFs, like little images and pictures that are all for elementary school. And it's very difficult to find something that is quality and usable in a middle school and a high school. So when we actually began really honing in, I mean, we did this over 20 years live. So every year we would hone in and rewrite, throw in new songs, change out songs, change jokes, whatever didn't land, we would switch it on the fly. And so we had a really good time being able to do that. And so after 20 years, you begin to figure out what really works and what's there. And so for us, we began to realize there wasn't anything that was worthwhile. I can't say not anything, because there's some really great companies out there, but there was no one doing what we were doing that was for middle school and high school. And so most of the time, high schools, if you're an educator out there in middle school or high school, you know that you have to use something from an elementary level and tool it up to work in a middle school or a high school level. So we specifically target secondary schools.
Now, what I think is so interesting is a lot changes over 20 years,
Yes.
Especially the youth and what
Yep.
is cool and what is not cool. How have you, been able to kind of evolve
Yes.
and make it relate to the children of today or over time?
Well, if you ask my kids, they would say we're not cool, but they actually come back and they're like, all my friends think you guys are really cool. So we recognized as we got to a certain age, we were like, look, we need to start asking our kids what they think. So our kids, as they've grown up, have really gotten involved and help us to stay fresh on what's happening in schools. But I mean, you know, we would go to malls and we would look around and see what kids are wearing, listen to how they were talking, and interview people and talk and visit schools, you know. And when you're on tour in the United States, you can go from California to Indiana to New York. Very, very different. I mean, we did inner city schools in Chicago, we did rural schools in Indiana, and we would have principals come up to us all the time. I'd be standing in the back of the auditorium and they would say, "How did you know?" And I'd be like, "How did I know what?" And they're like, "How did you know what my kids were like?" And I'm like, I think the thing that when you get stuck in genres, you don't realize kids are kids. Doesn't matter where they grew up, kids are kids. They all deal with the same struggles. They have specific, you know, things that are specific to them based on where they grow up or the economic level that they grow up in. But kids deal with kid things, and bullying is a human experience. It's not any one group. It's a human experience.
Now, with that being said, we kind of focus on schools a lot, but
Yes.
you know, what role do parents play, and how could they be more involved?
Parents play a huge role. You know, the name of our company is called Speak Life End Bullying because we start with the solution. If we can teach our kids the culture of speaking life to other people, we know bullying ends. Bullying thrives in an environment where the bully is allowed to thrive. So if we can, like the targeting of those 60%, if we can create a culture inside that 60%, then we can create a culture of speaking life. The bully isn't getting what they're wanting any longer. They're not getting that satisfaction. And so they actually start to shift towards what gives them that satisfaction, which is what those other kids are doing. So you'll see bullies, they become our biggest advocate. And that really starts at home because parents are going to be the ones that need to create a culture of speaking life in their home. It's not okay for us to leave it to the schools to be responsible to raise our children. It's the school's responsibility to educate our children, and we are giving our children to them to educate with us, but it needs to be in partnership. But parents really need to be the ones that are responsible for creating a culture of speaking life in their home, so that when that student leaves and goes into a world and a culture that's always going to be against them, they know that they have something that can build them up and lift them up, that they have a solid rock to go back to.
Now, how can schools connect with you to have their students see your musical, and where can people go in general just to learn more?
Absolutely. Just in general, if you're a school or if you're a parent, if you want to know more, we have a parent product for you that will help you to create that culture in your school. You can, or in your home, you can go to speaklifethemusical.org. Speaklifethemusical.org. And if you're a family, you can click on Speak Life at Home. And if you're a school, you can click on Speak Life End Bullying for Schools.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And then, you know, what do you hope to see for the future of this? It's been 20 years so far. What do you hope to see for the next 20 years?
Oh my gosh. You asked that question when we are just gearing up towards our new school year. We actually have a tour that's happening. We used to tour live, and then when we put it on film, we couldn't tour anymore. We just distribute it. And so now we have a hybrid model where we actually take the film into schools and do it for them. And so that's exciting. And then we're getting ready to launch our home product. So you can sign up for the launch of our home product as well. That's coming very, very soon. So for the future, we would love to see more musicals. We would love to see more topics that we can hit. But right now, bullying is very close to my heart because it's what I went through as a kid, and it's what I just want to see no other student have to go through.
Well, Dan, I want to thank you so much for joining us and sharing your story
Of
and
course.
just this beautiful world that you created. So thank you so
Yes.
much.
No, thank you.
To learn more about Dan and his wife Rebecca's mission to end bullying permanently, please go to their website, speaklifethemusical.org. Don't go away. We'll be back with more Open right after this.
19.7% of Bronxites currently experience food insecurity. Meanwhile, instead of these nice, colorful foods, this is the best food that they have access to. If this sounds like you, there are a bunch of resources to get healthy food for free or cheap. If you want to help, you might consider donating or volunteering in one of these places. Community fridges like this one are all over the city and allow New Yorkers to conveniently donate extra food to people who might need it. Go to this link and find your nearest one. Food banks and pop-up events like these provide millions of healthy meals to families in need. These organizations are distributing meals to Bronxites as we speak and are always accepting donations and volunteers.
What's up, creative family? Discover your voice with BronxNet community media classes. Are you ready to bring your ideas to life? At BronxNet, we offer television production classes for community members ages 18 and over, empowering you to share your vision with the world. Get certified in field production, in-studio production, and our new exciting addition, podcast production. Once certified, you can create your own show to air on one of our 6 TV channels. It all starts with our free Unleash Your Ideas Masterclass, designed to help you plan your show idea and set you up for success on your production journey. This class is offered at the beginning of each month for your convenience. Our dedicated BronxNet team is here to support, encourage, and uplift you every step of the way. Join us and become a part of the creative force that engages and inspires the Bronx community and beyond. Sign up today and start your media journey with BronxNet. Visit bronxnet.org/education to learn more and register. Let's create something amazing together.
Welcome back. New York Road Runners' vision is to build healthier lives and stronger communities through the transformative power of running, with all types of events such as their NYRR Open Run, which helps build community and healthy lifestyles, and walks held at neighborhood parks in New York City. The Senior Vice President of Events and Race Director for NYRR, Ted Metellus, joins me now. Ted, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you.
Now, I understand we got to talk a little bit and that you have like a really cool history here in the Bronx, especially, you know, with your just overall relationship with running. So can you tell us a little bit more about your background?
Sure. So I'm a Bronx native, born and raised in the Bronx here. Grew up here, went to high school here, elementary school. My siblings all went to school here in the Bronx as well. My brother actually went to college here in Lehman College. New York Road Runners was founded in the Bronx, New York, back in 1958, McCombs Dam Park, right by where Yankee Stadium is. Our first president and founder, Ted Corbett, lived in the Bronx. There's actually a street named after him here. So yeah, New York Road Runners has deep roots in the Bronx.
That's amazing. Now, can you tell us a little bit more about NYRR and its overall mission? I know I kind of discussed it a little bit, but can you go into more detail about it?
Well, you know, it's identifying the transformative power of running, and not just running, but running, movement, activity, and community. When you're talking about thousands and thousands of people that have partaken in either the TCS New York City Marathon, the New Balance Bronx 10 Miler, or any of the other programs and events that we have throughout the New York tri-state area, there's community that's around that. So as a nonprofit community running organization is deep rooted in us to give back to the community, keep people moving, keep people active, our youth as young as 2-year-olds, our seniors that are out there moving as well. So that's what we do in New York Road Runners.
That's amazing. I'd love to hear that the children, the babies are involved. That's amazing. Definitely important to start young. Now, I'm curious to know what inspired New York Road Runners to organize the Shakeout at St. Mary's event. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Sure. So we have open run programs, as you mentioned before. We have 2 of them here in the Bronx and Soundview and at St. Mary's. That's happening every Saturday. So those walks and runs are there in these communities with the goal of lowering the barrier of entry. So they're free. They're all community-based. They're members of the community. They're engaging with other people out there. It's not just running. It's all about movement and walking. I mean, being a Bronx native is you walking in this neighborhood, in this community is what we do. You know, whether you're going out to Fordham Road or you're walking back and forth to your supermarkets, it's all about that activity. Well, this is lined up with being able to give people some education and information about how to stay healthy, how to keep moving, but also inspiring the young people as well to get out there and move.
Now, can you talk about the importance of making things like running and fitness more accessible across the 5 boroughs of New York City, and especially, you know, in certain areas where it's a little harder to kind of have a safe space to run and do these type of events?
Absolutely. So what's key into that is, as I mentioned before, lowering the barrier of entry. So our youth programs, our Rising New York Road Runners youth programs are all free. Our senior strider programs are all free. So it's all about being able to get people out there and moving. And what's beautiful is our staff and volunteers, many of them are Bronx based. So they look just like you and I. They're out there getting people moving and active, and we're doing them in their parks and in their communities. So that also helps as well. So many of our races and events are happening in Central Park and in Prospect Park and other parts throughout the city, but being able to have something close to home that you can come out, see your neighbors, see your friends, see classmates and students as well, getting out there and moving is what we do.
Now, how can community members of varying fitness levels prepare for and make the most of, you know, the fun run and the walk during the event?
So that is the great thing. There are different groups that are going to go out as part of the walk based on their ability and skill. Whether you're running, jogging, walking, or strolling, we have different leaders and groups that will be taking off at that point. I think being able to demystify running, because people see it as either punishment for something they did wrong on the track field or, or on the court. But when you see it as something that's keeping you moving at a young age, and even at older ages, people that want to get out there and move themselves, when they are doing that with people in their own community and being able to do it at their own pace, it makes that comfort level higher.
And with that being said, how do we change our mindset about activity? Because it is often associated with negative, like running, like, people are just like, oh, I don't want to run, or I don't want to do this. What can we do to kind of change our outlook on that type of activity?
Well, it's funny. People see running as, like I said before, some sort of punishment or something that you've done wrong, until you get out there and realize that, okay, it's all about movement and the benefits of that. And when you realize how good you feel when you get out there and walk around the block, walk around 2 blocks, walk around 10 blocks, get out there and move around a little bit and start seeing that benefit that comes back to your body, and obviously spiritually and physically and emotional benefits that come from that, that's great. Then when you start getting other people to come out and do that with you, now you're developing that community that's at play. So don't see it as a bad thing. See it as a first step to many steps to something great.
Now, can you talk about some of the amazing partnerships or just partners that are going to be associated with the run?
Yes. So with the Soundview event that will be happening, at the St. Mary's event that will be happening, we have a couple of city officials that will be there as well, local Bronx officials that will be there. We'll have some influencers that will be there. We'll have one of our Peloton instructors that is a Bronx native, Rad Lopez, will be participating as well. Rad ran the TCS New York City Marathon and will be participating in the New Balance Bronx 10 miler.
That's amazing. And can you just, for those who are unaware, just talk about the open run and kind of like what it means to be a part of that?
So the open run event is really great. When you think about members of your community that are inspiring those around them in action and in movement, that's what the open run programs do throughout the New York tri-state area, particularly with those 2 locations in the Bronx, the Soundview and St. Mary's. Those are community leaders that are there, volunteers that are there that are welcoming you, making you feel comfortable. We have a back check hold area. We check everybody in. We release you as you walk, and you start to see your progression as you go on. Those that started walking will start slowly jogging. Those that were jogging are slowly making their way to running, and then it graduates up. Then you start looking at the other road races and events that we have in New York Road Runners and saying, hey, maybe I'll get out there and run one of those one day as well.
Now, just speaking of that, I want to talk about the 10 mile, because I do think when you hear 10 miles, it's so intimidating. But, can you, just from your experience, what you've seen, what is that experience like?
It's amazing. It's one of my favorite races. Again, being from the Bronx itself, running along the Grand Concourse around Marshall Loop Parkway, not far from where we are right now. It's a really great race. It finishes right in front of Yankee Stadium, right where New York Road Runners was founded at McCombsdown Park. What's great, too, is it's a little bit of a journey in learning a little bit more about what the Bronx is all about. The Grand Concourse being a major thoroughfare in our community, going through Fordham Road, going through Bedford Park Boulevard, Kingsbridge, making their way around these beautiful park places that maybe many people that are not from the Bronx or never been to the Bronx get to see firsthand that day. What's also really great about the Bronx 10 this year, and we've implemented this over the last couple of years, is a 1 mile component that's tied to it. So the Rising New York Road Runners program, which is our free youth programming, will have a Boogie Down Bronx Kids Run. So it will be for our youth ages 2 to 18, 2 years only doing dashes, and then you build up to doing dashes, a half mile to a mile. And we'll have seniors that are out there as well that will be participating in that distance. We'll have some activities and programs that are happening at Joyce Kilmer Park to learn more about the programs and activities that we have at New York Road Runners, not just in the Bronx, but citywide, but you build to it. What I love about that race, and something that close to my heart, is when I ran this race as a participant, it was always great to see my mom out there cheering us on, and seeing the people in the community welcoming and cheering the participants. And one last thing, too, that's really cool is one year we had an Olympian that participated in our event. Bev Ramos, who was an Olympian athlete from Puerto Rico, came out, ran the race, broke the course record, and she had the most amazing time to hear the sounds and see the people that make the Bronx special.
And I think that's kind of amazing that you shared that, because it shows that people from different backgrounds, different levels can kind of be a part of something together. There's no exclusivity that sometimes we do feel when we go to certain fitness places. Maybe you feel like you don't belong here. And I also kind of want to touch on again the fact that children are included. What was kind of the reasoning behind that you wanted to add people as young as 2 to be a part of it?
Our youth programming is something that has been part of our organization for decades. We do it citywide, let alone throughout the country. Our Rising New York Road Runners programs are in many schools here in the Bronx as well. So we invite parents and coaches and loved ones to learn a little bit more about the Rising New York Road Runners program, but having it be as part of this event and it's showcased on the Grand Concourse alongside the adults is a plus.
Now, what opportunities will there be for participants to engage with NYRR leadership and learn more about upcoming events, initiatives, or if they just kind of want to take on a bigger role if they do feel extremely connected to it?
So definitely go onto our website, NewYorkRoadRunners.org, to learn and see more information about our programming and events. The Bronx Kids Run is still open, so if you want to have your youth participate on September 21st, go online, register, get them out there to participate. But you'll see some of the programs that we have again at in Soundview and at St. Mary's. Definitely go by and check it out.
Now, I also want to talk about, just the overall idea of like creating community. Can you just talk about how running together with other people kind of fosters that community and builds relationship within the community?
Well, you hit it on the head when you say when you show up and you see people that look like you. And seeing other people of all physical abilities, all age groups that are out there engaging in this as well. It decreases your fears and concerns and increases your level of engagement significantly. And that's what we do year round. As a nonprofit organization, engaging with our community from the ground up is what we do. It's foundational in the changes that we see in our youth and our seniors and on our age group runners as well.
Now, can you talk about, just inclusivity and accessible running experiences for people of different backgrounds?
Yes. So we're very conscious of that, and it's displayed obviously when you look at people like you and I that are out there as a Bronx native, as a child of immigrant parents, being able to relate and engage with these folks. There are so many run clubs and crews that represent these groups as well, which has been really beautiful to see, and showcasing them and having them be involved and create a platform of engagement through that as well. So we have an open door and an open engagement opportunity there to help educate, but most importantly, listen and support.
Now, I also want to add that this is happening in the Bronx, where unfortunately we do see a lot of very high rates of obesity. We just struggle often with health in general. How do you hope that this run and the work that you're doing kind of makes those numbers go down, or kind of like changes the way we view health in the Bronx?
Well, it's year-round engagement. So while we're talking about the Bronx 10 miler, New Balance Bronx 10 miler, it is the year-round offerings that we have with things like the Open Run, with other future events that we'll be having in the Bronx itself. Please show up, be engaged, get connected, don't be afraid. Because when you're out there, you're going to be inspiring the people around you, and that's what's most important. We're not asking you to run fast. We're not asking you to run 26.2 miles. Just get out there and move a little bit each and every single day, because then you'll be motivated and you're motivating the people around you.
And then also, in addition to health, how does running help you mentally and, just your overall life in general?
Yeah, that's the transformative power of running. What it does for you physically, emotionally, and psychologically, and making you feel stronger and ultimately feel better about yourself. And then you start seeing how people respond to you in that same light. That all ties into that piece there. Some folks might be listening, like, oh, this is crazy, but think about how good you feel when you get up and just move yourself just a little bit. Go for a walk around the block, hang out with some folks that are doing your chores by foot. How you feel after that is key. So being able to display that in your communities, lowering those barriers of entry, and seeing folks like you and I that are out there that are inspiring others is key.
Well, Ted, I want to thank you so much for joining us and having this really amazing, inspirational conversation.
Absolutely, thank you.
To learn more about New York Road Runners and their upcoming events, please go to their website at nyrr.org. Stay tuned, we have more for you right after this.
Hey, Creative Family. My name is Timothy Coleman, and I'm the Director of Education here at BronxNet. And I'm standing in BronxNet's Media and Technology Studios in the South Bronx, because I want to let you know about an amazing program that we're bringing back that highlights the creativity of community members just like you. Emerging Media Makers is a show that introduces you to BronxNet's certified producers. They've taken a step in their creative journey by enrolling in BronxNet's media training classes. On this show, you'll get to see the many ways that our certified producers have created a space that's all their own. Emerging Media Makers, your passion lives here.
welcome back. The United States of America versus Julito is a book that explores the intricate dynamics of Julito's world, where family ties and lifelong friendships are intertwined with the business of drug trafficking. The book also teaches a stark warning of what might become of children if parents neglect them, leaving them adrift in a sea of trauma, loneliness, and hurt caused by a world of negative influences. Author Angel Diaz joins me now. Angel, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me.
Now, can you tell us a little bit more about just the inspiration, behind the book and how this all started for you?
All right, my book all started like I grew up around this area, Kingsbridge area. This is my area. I was born and raised in this area. Growing up as minority, being in the hood, like they say. I grew up there, moms and pops. I grew up poverty. So as my life developed and went on, I wind up to get involved with the streets. So as I got involved with the streets, and I wind up catching a federal sentence of 120 months. So when I got to sit down there and really reflect on myself and, what could I do to make stuff better, I just started to put this book together. I started to write the book, but I was writing like a regular novel book, then I just started writing it basically. It was easier doing it on myself, everything that I lived on, everything that I've been through. So basically prison was what showed me, this is what I want to do. I made a plan when I come home, this is what I'm gonna get on. So this is how I started the book. And I always gotta thank my nephew, because he always encouraged me. Adam, H.D. Sanchez, always encouraged me, do this book, you got a good story to tell. You from this area, you got a good story to tell. So I went with him, and this is how I started to get on this book.
That's amazing. And I want to say congratulations, because creating a book is not easy,
Yeah.
Especially when it's a book about your life, because in ways, sometimes you have to relive
It
certain
deals
moments.
with emotions, you
Right.
relive, a lot of things that you don't want to relive, but I think by just saying the stuff could help youth, other people. So this is why I'm doing this whole project that I'm doing right now with this book, United States of America versus Julito.
Now, how did you approach writing about such personal and intense experiences? I know that could not have been easy. So, what was your thought process?
I really got to do this, growing up, as you can see, I didn't cooperate with the government. So I had to hold my feelings. I took my time like a man, I did mines. I took my time like a man. But what made me be able to find myself was when I was being in prison, I was in called SHU. That's called solitary confinement. It's called special housing unit, but it's solitary confinement. It's when you get in trouble, it's a disciplinary that they put you in somewhere, and you're in there locked in 23-1 for your disciplinary behavior that you did in prison. So by me being in there by myself, I found myself. I got to reflect on myself. I got to mature myself. And I got to learn feelings, family, love, friends, a lot of things that you being by yourself that you learn. Because when I'm by myself, the letter that comes through the door is a friend. That's who you know who's a friend. Somebody that took the time to write that letter, to send it to you so it could get to prison. So when the mail comes, that makes you happy. So I found that. I found love as my family, support, been there for me, this, that. And then the other thing I really wanted to do was, the minority, Spanish, African American, us, what we go through. So I'm if I can say my story, maybe I can help. If it's 15 kids, maybe 5 or 8, I can help. It's doing a difference. So this is what I'm on my project. My book is basically on that, my life growing up and stuff like that. That's how I was able to write this book, by being in there, because I had all this time by myself. So this is how I got on it.
Now, you definitely talk about the time that you had it by yourself, and it made you kind of think about the relationships you had with people. Can you talk about the importance of, having those friends and having those families during a difficult time?
I learned, when you're outside and you're in the street and you're in this life, you have a whole bunch of friends. Everybody's your friend because of what you got. But when you get in a situation like I was in, that I was incarcerated, I was in prison, I'm in a box, solitary confinement, that's when I got to find out who was my real friends, who's the people that love me, because they're the ones that show me the support. When I'm in the street, everybody shows me support because I got everything everybody wants. Now I'm in there, out of sight, out of mind. Everybody forgets about you, but just the ones that love you and your family and the support.
Now, I want to take a moment to talk about music just in general. How has music, inspired you or play a role in your life?
Music has played a big part of my life, like as the reggaeton world. Like I got good friends. Daddy Yankee's a good friend of mine. Nicky Yang, De La Ghetto, Zion. I know a lot of good artists that are right now top artists that are real good friends of mine, good relationships. And I got into that, like being young. I had a friend of mine, like that raised me. He was a little older than me, rest in peace. A big brother of mine that raised me came from Puerto Rico. When he came from Puerto Rico, he brought all these artists. As me being young, I was raised around them. We in the street, we getting money. These artists around us, we helping them. And as the years came to come, these same artists are the ones that are the biggest names in the reggaeton industry right now. Like rest in peace, my good friend of mine, Flo La Movie. He passed away coming from DR with his family to Miami. He passed away, his kids, everything. Rest in peace, God bless, shout out. But these are people that inspired me, that helped me. And while I was outside, these are people that I got along with them. They was good to me. So when I came home, these are the same relationships now that I have, and these are the same people that are here helping me and, to do this project I'm doing now.
Now, I definitely want to discuss, as you mentioned, you had time to think and kind of transform your life. How do you now stay loyal to your principles?
Because I already know what I've been through. I already know the consequences, and we ain't going back to what we used to do.
Now, with that being said, you talked about how, during that time in your life, you had a lot of friends or people that you may have saw as friends at one point. How do you cope with kind of dealing with that, maybe realizing these people were not really trustworthy or were loyal or were true friends?
I mean, you live and you learn. That's what I got from all this. You live and you learn. Like they say, everything that shines ain't gold. So I learned that. And like now being a little older, I learned that, who's true friends and who's not true friends. But now I'm being a little older and living everything I lived through, I can distinguish. And I know true friends and people that are, and just so people can learn from this too, that you'll have a lot of people around you when you're doing whatever you're doing. But when things hit the fan or it gets messed up, out of sight, out of mind. And that's what I learned during my prison time. I did 120 months.
Wow. Now,
sentence.
How has this entire experience, kind of shaped your future and, what you want to see in your future?
It shaped my future a lot because as growing up, my childhood, like I was outside very young. So I've been through a lot, seen a lot of stuff as a young kid that I felt that being my age, a kid shouldn't be able to go through that, So these were things that like I've seen coming up, and it like make a change in me because now it's different because now I have a son and I have a little son, so I don't want them to go through what I'm going through. But then I remember the loopholes that my parents couldn't provide, not they couldn't provide because we came from poverty, My mom was a mom that raised 6 of us. We lived right here. I was raised on Kingsbridge right here on Creston, 193rd by St. James Park all my life. I played in this park all my life. I went to PS 86 right here. So this is like my area, but my mom was a single mom. My pops was in and out of prison, trying to, take care of us the way he could. So my mom is alone, holding us down. And, these are things that I've seen, and I don't want to have my kid or any other youth that's listening to my story, hear my story go through, because these are the times of your life, like, for a man, I feel, like being from a 12, a 13 to a 16, those are real big parts of your life, because this is like where you're going to finish high school, you make your decision, this is where you want to go bad, you want to go good, so these are the areas where we, need to, 12, 16, those are the areas that boys really, because we're curious, we want to do this, we watching TV, we seeing rappers, we seeing all the attention that is bringing, so this is what boys, men like to go to.
Now, what advice would you give to parents of, boys in that age group who may be struggling, who may not have all the resources? What advice would you give them?
I mean, advice that I would give to moms is always good to have support. It's always good to give your child support, always be there for him. Talk to him understand him. You know, when he's a boy, he's gonna do things that he might not tell his mom or tell his dad because he feels, you know, he's a man, it's supposed to be the man part. But I just say, like, you know, with boys, even with girls, with anybody, kids, you just need to pay a lot of attention, support them, understand them. You know, the era's different from 70s to 90s now. In 2000 era, everybody's growing up a little different. So if you're a mom that you from the 70s and now it's the 90s, you think that's wrong, it's not. You just gotta, you know, adjust, and everybody's gonna learn.
Now, I definitely want to touch on the fact that your story has been acknowledged, and it was portrayed in NYPD Green and the Netflix series El Ganador. How does it feel to know that your case has been receiving such, wide impact on so many people?
Right now, it's like a real blessing from God. Like, this is all a blessing, everything that's happening to me. Right now I'm right here talking, I've been in a cell by myself thinking, like, would this ever come? Would this ever happen for me? But I guess with the grace of God and the blessings, everything is coming. Like you said, like being in the Netflix, that Nikki Yang, that was based on us. Nikki Yang was a friend of ours. Being around these big superstar reggaeton guys as friends, is a real big pleasure, good things like that. And this is just like something that to me is just new for me, like being from what I went through and growing up and being here, doing interviews. I did already a couple shows. I did already Dog in the Yard. I got another book coming out soon. It's coming out, it's called 2600. That's my building where I was raised at. So I got another book coming out. I got my book right now. I'm trying to get a series on it. So just stuff like that.
That's amazing. And, I also want to add that what's so inspirational and amazing about your story is that regardless of what your past is, your future is so much brighter, and there's just so much left for you right now. So, with that being said, I want to thank you so much for joining us and sharing your story.
Thank you so much
telling.
for having me here. Thank you so much. I appreciate y'all so much. It's an honor to be here with y'all, especially in the Bronx. Like, this is where I'm from. I'm a Bronx native.
Right.
So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
If you're interested in reading The United States of America versus Julito, please go online and search the title to find where the book is available. We have to take a quick break. We'll be back with more Open right after this. Welcome back. The Young Center for Immigrant Children's Rights is a champion for the best interests of children who arrive in the United States from all corners of the world. They serve as trusted allies for children while they are in deportation proceedings, advocating for their best interests. Ari Cannavino, a New York volunteer coordinator for the organization, joins me now to discuss. Ari, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Now, can you tell us a little bit more about your organization and its overall mission?
Yeah, so the Young Center, we work tirelessly to advocate for the rights and the well-being of all immigrant children, specifically those facing deportation or detention policies, who are seeking to reunify or maybe return to home country.
Now, what are the primary challenges that unaccompanied immigrant children face while in federal custody?
They are actually facing quite a lot right now. As you maybe remember yourself from being a teenager, from being adolescents, you naturally have a lot of things and a lot of emotions going on through that. Now add in that you are disconnected from your home, you're disconnected from your family, you're disconnected from your culture, and a lot of times you're disconnected from your language. And you're navigating a legal system that has been set up for adults and is very confusing for adults. So being put through all of that and not having any best interest rights is incredibly overwhelming and can really make these children feel very isolated.
Now, just for my own clarity, are these children alone, like no parents are with them? Can you tell us a little bit about that experience?
So these children either arrive at the border unaccompanied, so without any adults, any trusted adults, whether that be parents, tias, aunts, uncles, any sort of family member, or they are separated at the border. So there's two different situations that we really face. A large portion of them are actually arriving at the border unaccompanied.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much for clarifying that, because I think that a lot of us are lucky that, for the most part of our lives, we can kind of go through certain experiences with our parents or trusted adults. And so, kind of to understand that there are children that don't have this in such a scary, environment, it's really eye-opening. So thank you for, clarifying that. Now, how does the center ensure the rights and well-being of unaccompanied children in federal custody? Like, what is that process like?
Yeah, so actually our volunteers, who is my kind of purview at the Young Center, are a large part of that. So we have Young Center volunteers that meet with these children every single week. And what we do is we have one volunteer with one child, and they're only meeting that one child for 1 hour every single week. And they're playing games, they're talking to them, they're sometimes watching football matches or soccer matches, and really getting to know their story, developing a relationship with them, becoming a trusted ally. And then we at the Young Center, with that child's consent, will take that information to advocate for the best interest. So the Young Center side on our staff as case supervisors who work directly on these cases are either from a legal background, like lawyers, or they're case supervisors and really have that psychology background. Though they are not lawyers or psychologists to these children, they're able to use this information to best guide the children. They use that in that child's advocacy, and then if there's things needed beyond that, we actually have a policy team, a technical assistance team as well, that is all working together to both make each child's case safer, but then the cases for every single child easier and have access to more resources.
Now, I definitely want to take a moment to highlight, some of the programs or the work that you do to support those children with disabilities or those at risk of aging out of the system. Can you tell us a little bit more about that effort?
Yeah, so on top of all the other confusing things going through that, these children are coming from various backgrounds. Some of these children are disabled and are facing various disabilities or even illnesses, and some of them are about to age out of the system. So while we do not actually offer direct services to these children, what we do is we work with our policy team and our advocacy team, and we make sure that we are advocating to get these individual children resources. So whether that might be disability resources, making sure the supervisors at the facility and maybe a potential sponsor has the medical information that they need to best care for that child, as well as children aging out, making sure they have resources to go into housing, to go into that adult world in the United States, in a new country for them, with as many resources as they need, job training, college resources, anything that they can utilize to become their best selves here in this new country. We also have,
No, it's okay.
we also have a wonderful person on our policy team who directly advocates for children with disabilities, and she uses her own experiences to really make sure all of our children are given the resources they need.
Now, I definitely want to take a moment to highlight language barriers for anybody, even in New York City where there's tons of languages, sometimes it could be a barrier if you don't understand the person next to you. So I could imagine that experience is definitely heightened for a lot of these children. How does the Young Center address the needs of children who speak Indigenous languages and ensure that they kind of keep that close to them?
Yeah, so working with children and advocating for children who speak the Indigenous languages is not an uncommon experience for us. So we try to really do a multi-pronged approach to all of this. We both take external stakeholders and organizations. We recently worked with the International Mayan League to both educate our team and our volunteers to have that cultural sort of empathy and those skills best suited to work with children. But we also just make sure that we are bringing in volunteers that speak these indigenous languages to try to communicate to these children in their language and let them use their own words. Now, if we have a shortage of people who are able to communicate with that, we utilize legal interpretation services, and we make sure our volunteers have some sort of cultural connection to these children, or maybe some sort of skill set that can best help them, professional or personal lives that can best help these children. So there is still a strong connection, and then we help them use this interpretation services so that child is only having to speak in their language. They can tell us their story as best as possible. Our advocacy team also really advocates for these children to have these resources in their different situations, in the different shelters that they might be, wherever they're residing, so that they continuously are able to communicate and make sure that their needs are being met.
Now, I definitely want to highlight that volunteers are a huge part of the organization, and I understand that there's an upcoming volunteer child advocate training. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Oh, with pleasure, because that is my personal favorite. So actually this upcoming weekend, the 7th and the 8th, we are doing an in-person advocacy training right here in the Bronx at the Andrew Friedman home, who we've worked with in the past. And with 2-day training, it's multi-pronged, it's a little bit fun. We make sure there's food and snacks and lots of coffee and lunch. And we also make sure we're bringing in experts to train our volunteers that can be as prepared for this position and best work with these children as best as we can. Outside of that, we will have another training if you can't make it to this one, if you are interested in the spring. So just go onto our website, and if you look at our volunteer portal, it has all of the information. The main things we ask is from our volunteers is that they be able to speak another language. That's a really big thing for us, and also be over the age of 21.
Now, can you describe the role of a volunteer child advocate, and what are some of the qualities and skills that you're looking for in potential volunteers?
Yeah, so there is some hard set rules and boundaries that we really just need our volunteers to do, because they are working with very vulnerable populations. Some of it is legality, like being over 21. Some of it really has to do with their skills as well. We ask all of our volunteers to be either advanced or fluent in a language outside of English. It can be any language, though we are looking for certain languages like Spanish, like French, like indigenous languages like Achi and Quechua. And so we're really looking out for those kind of skills. And then we're comparing that with their life skills. Has this person worked with children, or do they have children? Do they have that experience? Do they have maybe some hard professional skills, like maybe they were a psychiatrist, maybe they worked in that sort of field for a while. Maybe they worked with children in various sort of refugee programs, or even adults in refugee programs. A lot of the volunteers we see too are the children of immigrants. So they have that personal story and that connection as well, and they utilize that to help children coming through. So it's multi-pronged, it's very kind of holistic that way. We're looking at all of these people attributes and then using that to best match them with cases in the future.
Now, as you mentioned, this is a very vulnerable population. One, because they are, immigrant children, but because they're children just in general. Can you just talk about some of the precautions that you take, just to ensure that the children feel safe and, that this entire experience is almost welcoming for everyone involved?
Yes, so technically we do also make sure there's lots of background checks that everyone goes through, everyone is safe and everything like that. And then emotionally as well, we make sure all of our volunteers are prepared through trainings and through continued education to be able to work effectively with children who are facing various backgrounds. Everything we do is putting the child first as well. So we make sure anything that we ask our volunteers to do with children is putting that child first. So we have a little closet at our center, or we encourage people to kind of bring in things that they enjoy doing, like making bracelets. I actually am showing off one that a child I worked with made. I think it's lovely. Or painting nails, or listening to music, or just, a lot of Messi fans right now looking up little sports highlights and soccer highlights online to really make sure that we're allowing the child to talk. And part of that as well is allowing the child not to talk. There are some times that the child will be like, I really cannot talk to you today. And we respect that because we're here for them. This is their time. We don't want to pressure them to say anything they're not comfortable with. So just hanging out with them, knowing that we're here if they need us, but they're not being forced to speak with us.
And I think that's so important because we're, children, teenagers, sometimes they can be moody or they don't want to talk. And you may go in thinking like, I'm going to have this amazing experience. And they're like, I don't feel like talking today. And I think it's amazing that you kind of acknowledge like that can also happen as well. So, I think that's pretty cool. With that, I also want to talk about, just in general, how can the community continue to engage with and support the Young Center's future efforts and, the work that they're doing to support these children?
Yeah, so we actually have multiple resources that we encourage people in the community to use. So you can definitely look online and become a volunteer. We are continuously looking for volunteers. We see about 18 new cases in New York City throughout the boroughs every single month. And we want to match volunteers to those every single month. So I think one of the important things to know is that if you feel like you might be able to help, I can tell you, you can help. You can actually kind of take all that confusing information you might be hearing and wondering how you can involve. You can go and work with a kid 1 hour every week and really just help that one child. And sometimes that's all that needs to happen. If you're not maybe able to do that at that time, or you want to give back in other ways, we have a Waymakers race, the Elizabeth Frankel Waymakers race coming up, who is named after one of our employees, or former employee, who is from the New York area. She was born and raised here, and she was a fierce advocate for children's rights and immigration. She helped set up all of our offices throughout the years, and we're kind of honoring her and her advocacy and helping others kind of play into that advocacy as well by grounding themselves in a child's journey through walk, right? These children a lot of times have to walk here. So as a fundraiser, as a means to, create and generate more money, we ask that people do this race and ground themselves with these children's stories. And it is online, so you can, pun intended, go at your own pace, walk, run, wheel, whatever is utilized for you. Beyond that, just share our mission, just share our values. You don't know who it's going to reach that could really help a child, that unaccompanied immigrant children that we are working with right now.
Well, with that, I want to thank you so much for joining us and telling us, about the really important work that you're doing to protect these children. So thank you.
Thank you so much for having me here today.
If you would like to volunteer with the center, please go to the website on your screen below. We've come to the end of our show today. I'd like to thank all of our guests for joining us and you, the viewers, for tuning in. If you missed any part of today's show, you can catch the recable cast at 5 and 10 p.m. on Optimum Channel 67 and Verizon Fios Channel 33, or watch anytime on the web at BronxNet.org. You can catch a brand new episode of Open with Darren Jaime on Wednesday and with Rena Valentine on Friday. I'm Kibin Alleyne, wishing you and yours safety and wellness now and always. See you next time.